Smart Cities Marketplace. My name is Mart Veliste. I will be the moderator today. The topic, as you already know when you registered, is about how innovation from universities and companies really be an asset for the smart city transition, and how this transfer of knowledge and innovation can actually take place. So the webinar lasts for an hour and a half. And there are also some housekeeping rules that we would like to ask you to stick by. So first of all, if you're not speaking currently, then we ask you to keep your microphone muted, as well as the microphone off on and the video off, unless you're taking the floor. Then when you do take the floor, then please, of course, turn on your camera and also state your name and organization so we would know who is there. In general, your active involvement will be a big part of this event today. There will be a roundtable, in a way, a discussion for everybody to contribute, share examples from their region, as well as ask questions yourselves. This is at the second part of the webinar. But also in the meantime, of course, you're welcome to write questions into the chat so that when we have presenters making their presentations, that you wouldn't maybe forget what you wanted to ask. But as you can see, it's a small group type of webinar. So we really want it to be interactive. So it's not just about the free speakers that I will introduce shortly, but it's also about you and the knowledge you bring in to this exchange and to the topic. Of course, please be advised that this event is being recorded for dissemination purposes. So later, if you are there with your camera and voice, then know it is being recorded. However, I hope this doesn't hinder you as also potential experts and interested in, individuals in the field to speak your mind and contribute to the discussions. Roughly, the agenda today is that after I've done my introductions, we have 3 presentations from across Europe. So first we will have Külle Tärnov from Estonia talking about the Smart City Challenge, sort of a framework they have with the Finest Center on how smart city solutions can be sort of created and then also sped up. After her, we have Christian from the Copenhagen Solutions Lab talking about how City of Copenhagen is facilitating this triple helix sort of collaborations and making sure that smart city innovation from the private sector also then comes to the benefit of the city's smart city agenda. And last but not least, we have Alejandro from the city of Getafe from Spain, talking about how their ecosystem of collaboration around innovation projects, mainly in this built environment, works. And the way it works is we're first going to listen to these presentations, and the questions we actually take after all 3 of the presentations. So this is again, if something comes to mind during one of them, maybe note it down for yourself and put it to the chat so that when we are in the Q&A mode later, you wouldn't forget. But as already said, it's not just regular Q&A. It is also a chance for you to jump into the speaker role to share something from your side at that stage as well. And maybe also just to say that I'm coming from the Institute of Baltic Studies. It's an Estonia-based research think tank. So I've been working here for the last 6 years, also on topics related to sustainability and smart cities, but also quite a lot looking at enterprises and how the innovation ecosystem functions here in the Baltics. And of course, here today, I'm representing the Smart Cities Marketplace, which is the European Commission initiative on supporting cities to become more sustainable and furthering their smart city agenda. And at the very end of the webinar, I'm going to say a few more words about how the Smart Cities Marketplace functions and what are your opportunities to make use of our services there and how you can benefit. So if you stay with us until then, you will also get a bit more information about the marketplace if you're not yet familiar with what we do. That being said, I'm actually going to now stop sharing my screen, and I would like to introduce our first speaker, Külle, to tell us about the Smart City Challenge. So Külle, please, the floor is yours.
Very nice to meet you. I will share the screen.
Yeah, it works.
Very nice. So, yes, we are working with researchers and cities and yes, trying to get real solutions to real cities. Where I come from is the Finnish Center for Smart Cities that is established by two universities, TalTech from Estonia and Aalto from Finland. So we are a joint center. And we have an ambition to develop 10 smart city solutions that will be also implemented in at least 30 European cities by 2030. We are on the way with that. So let's hope we can cooperate with some of the cities also participating here today. So this smart city piloting program, we started it in 2020, and we have at the moment financing until 28. But we are of course working for the next rounds of financing, but then in more diversified ways. Of course, with its Smart Cities Challenge, we want that the solutions, yes, will make the citizens happier, the cities more sustainable, and of course, in wide range, also the planet healthier. So how we do it in more practical terms is that we always start with gathering urban challenges from cities, but also from real estate developers and private campuses. Then we announce those challenges, and the researchers and companies can then propose solution ideas to these concrete challenges that the cities have. Then we also publish these first ideas, and then there is the selection process, but not by us, but in reality by cities. So the researchers need to get minimum 2 cities to their idea who would be interested, believe in it, and be ready to pilot it. In our scheme, as the financing comes from the structural funds given to Estonia, so all the ideas need to get one Estonian city and one city from the wide world as a minimum. Usually they get a little bit more, 3-4. And then jointly they will make us a joint proposal of about 6 pages as the initial proposal. And then we choose the best ones. Usually it has been 6 ideas that we then work more thoroughly to already for a full and long proposal. And then the pilot projects start, and the content of the pilot project is really to develop it, pilot it, and prepare for commercialization. So the end result is the product that is either licensed to an existing company, or then a spin-off is created, and we, as the TalTech, will be, or Finnish Center, will be owner in that spin-off. So usually these pilots are 2 or 3 years in length. So the first period is always for really those different institutes and cities coming together and developing the solution already in depth. Then the center is piloting in those 2 cities and analyzing and seeing if the effect they wanted to get is true or is it not. And if it really worked, and if there is a good business plan, then there is phase 3 that has 2 aspects. One is, yes, that is to prepare for commercialization, and for those piloting city to implement this solution for a long term, so that it's not just a nice project, but really what do we need to change in our city settings so that it's an everyday thing to use. And the financing, yes, 800,000 up to 1.2 million is that we can give to these pilot projects. We have had 2 rounds. So we have 6 solutions already piloted and developed. As you see, in these rounds, we mostly work with Estonian cities, but we changed that from round 3 to have the foreign cities. So from this link, you can also get to our homepage and see those solutions. Anyone interested, yes, let us know, and we are happy to match you with these teams, and these are ready for scaling up for new cities. So as you see, the energy topics, then about urban greenery, autonomous vehicles, and also how to objectively measure the well-being of citizens in urban settings. So round 3 to 5 are the ones that are going on at the moment. So we have had 77 cities from 26 countries that proposed the challenges or voted for the urban challenges. And we have gathered from those 2 rounds 65 ideas. Both round 6 were selected to the finals, and one was launched in November, and we hope to launch 3 more in 2025. So the one that was launched in November is called Urban Splash. So and it's piloted in Tartu and 2 cities in Ireland, and it's about measuring bathing water quality. It has many shortcomings at the moment, but if this solution would work, it makes the life of cities and private bathing site owners much better and smoother. The ones that are selected for round 4. So as you see, the first is about street lighting. There are also big innovations that you can do there. It's about managing the traffic system on rivers, but also in the harbors. Then a toolkit for natural hazard resilience, like floods and so forth. So how to bring together this top-down information, but also bottom-up actions and activities. Then, yes, reusing old buildings, quite a wide topic. So how really we can demolish so that we can build new buildings from the same materials, and how this logistics would work. Tree City is about planning tree roots. So the trees usually don't grow as carrots. They also can grow otherwise. So how you can really plan the things in a smooth way. And then, yes, how we can use artificial intelligence for road marking monitoring about this. So probably 3 of those will start from September, the best ones. So you can read again from this link a little bit more about these ideas. But yes, we will also start round 5. And we will probably announce it in the end of May or beginning of June, which means that all cities again welcome to send their challenges in September and then vote for the ones, because we need not only one city be interested, but still more. Then the researchers will propose the solution ideas by the end of November. We will select best of these, and then by the end of February already, researchers and the cities together need to send us the 6-page initial pilot project proposal. Then we help them, and the full proposals come by August 24, which we select, and then 2 best ones can start from November and run for 24 months, and the financing is around 800,000. So we will announce it sometime in and then very shortly, yes, the main learnings from those first rounds is that we still, for this business logic has still been quite mystery for researchers and difficult to handle. So we are helping them much more. Yesterday we had a full day workshop for the research groups to really work on their business side. Then, yes, in order to have international products, we need to engage foreign cities from day one, not hope that they first do it in Estonia and then we go international. And yeah, for researchers, I tried to be very flexible in the first rounds, but it created more mess than benefit. So now we have quite clear rules, quite clear templates, quite clear sums, so they know how it really works. And for the evaluation side, we also changed that. We are evaluating business side, research side, and wider impact. So initially we had a set of evaluators that evaluated everything. Now we have special evaluators for the business side, academics for the academic side, and then ministries for the other side. So everybody knows their domain and can really be expert in evaluating this. Okay, thank you from my side, and happy to answer the questions later.
Yes, thank you, Kyllä. And indeed, I already noted some other additional questions that were already popping up in my head down as well. So for the participants, also keep your questions with you. And also just to say that the presentations will be made available afterwards. So as Kyllä had a slide with a link where you can also read more and access the information, then you will get this after the event as well. Thank you, Kyllä. Let's now then jump to Christian to tell us about the Copenhagen Solutions Lab and how you are working with smart city innovation.
Thank you. Just making sure that you can see the big screen here. So my name is Christian. I'm the team leader of Copenhagen Solutions Lab. Copenhagen Solutions Lab is the smart city unit of the city of Copenhagen. I will try to show you how our approach is to innovation and the transformative innovation that we are working with. So what we are doing is that we always start with defining what is the actual problem that the city has from a planning perspective or service perspective. And then we are trying to identify what solutions there may be available for solving that problem. And if some are existing, then they can just purchase it. But if they are not, then we'll go into an innovative process that hopefully in the end should find a long-term solution to that problem. We are working with testing and trial and implementation in the city. And are spearheading innovation projects within the field of sustainability in the green department and social departments, which is also why we are trying to be the most recognized smart city in the Nordic region, because the Nordics has this emphasis on green solution and techs, as well as making sure that there is enough inclusion and social adherence to it. So our innovation process starts by scoping what is the innovative needs. We go through a thorough investigation of when we are contacted by our specialist units. They tend to have a suggestion for what their needs is, but then when we actually engage with them, it typically is defined as something else when we go into a deep process. So they might think that they need a solution that is A, but actually their solution that they need is a B or C or D. So by doing a thorough scoping and really getting to the bottom of what the problem is, it allows us to then investigate what are the innovative solutions that could be. It could be through a market search, a market dialogue, or something else, where we can get a better sense of what solutions may be able to uncover the problem, or at least parts of it, and then should be developed further, or if it's something radically new that needs to be developed. And from there on, if the specialist units wants to, we can then go into an innovative process where we do the testing, pilot testing, or a trial of the solution, and with the end result that they should then do the implementation by themselves, because they are the ones operating the systems or the tech on a daily basis, and as thus also would have to do the maintenance and change the work habits. So the final implementation we help with, but we are not the ones responsible for that. As you can see here, there are different levels of innovations. This is very caught up, but the essence is that we have a digitalization department that takes care of the core innovation. That could be that we need a new map or new data that we already have, but presented in a new way, or some smaller innovations to just make sure that the daily operations goes smoother. And then we have these transformative innovation, which is where my team has come in, where you're trying to change society at a larger scale, or trying to do something completely innovative and new that is radically changing the work habits and the experiences for the citizens. And with that, it also becomes a focus for us that what we are trying to work into is the vision of where the city is going, and this green transition that Copenhagen is famous for. So we have a new climate strategy for the next 10 years that's just coming up, and that, along with 12 other cross-sectoral strategies for the next 10 years, provides us with a platform, a scheme to understand what are the problems that our city will find out that is needed over time, and we can then be proactive in actually trying to find solutions for these well ahead before they should actually be implemented, so we have the necessary time to do the testing and the scoping and all these things to make sure that when in 10 years time the implementation of these technologies that should be innovative can then be done with the proper scoping for it. That leads us to this graph of our process where we mature the idea, do the pilot project where we do a proof of concept test, and then our experience is that it takes roughly a year or two for our organization to mature and understand what is the outcome from the pilot testing. But at the same time, we also present what the pilot project has learned and present that to the market, to the knowledge institutions and everyone else. So they also can help mature their understanding of the city needs and also what the technology is and needs to be further improved of. And then that year or two later, we see a tendency to do the implementation project, which is a systemic trial where we get an understanding of what are the key value chains members and partners that should be collaborating, what are the business case, what are the digital security risks, what are the changes in work habits, what is the investment cost, all these things. That gives us a proper understanding for now the requirements that we can then put out in the tender process afterwards. To just give you an idea of what that could look like, we had flexible energy. It's a subject we're working very much on. So prior to 2019, there was a maturation of the idea that flexible energy is something that we should focus on if we are to become a green city. Then we did the pilot tests in 2019. And then you can see there was this 2 years time where there is a maturation, and then we did a agreement that allows us to do this systemic testing. And then again, 2 years time, 1 or 2 years. Now we are trying to roll out the final implementation of flexible energy for at least some parts of the energy field within flexible heating. And at the same time, we are also scaling up the testing. So it's not only, or the implementation, so it's not only the municipal buildings, but it's also the private citizens and the private companies that are being included. And being this technology rolled out too. And we are in the process of scoping this even further out to try to get a better sense of what we can do to even improve it even further. But that gives you this idea that there is these stall times for a year or two before a new step can be taken, at least from our experience. So a lot of what we do requires interdisciplinary working communities. And in that sense, it's about having an understanding of what our subject units are working on, but also what is the business support functions of our digitalization department, the legal department, purchasing department, they are being involved even at the outset of these ideas to get a sense of, are there any things that we should be aware of if it becomes a final implementation, so they can be learned at the same time and get the same learnings that the specialized units do in terms of what is it that Copenhagen needs to do to improve their innovative heights. And then we can reach out to our innovation network, which is the solution partners, which is normally just tech companies that could be both hardware and software. And then we have ecosystem partners that are mostly knowledge institutions, but also some other communities that works with a lot of outreach to various knowledge platforms or startup communities or such. And then we, of course, have our city partners. We are part of the Nordic Smart City network. We started it. But at the same time, we also reach out to other cities around the world, which we are comparing us to try to get a sense of what they do and what their innovation can be found. And in that, we hopefully find the solutions that are needed, or at least get a sense of what we should do to further implement it or develop it. And that gives us this sort of overview where us in our small team do not try to do the process by ourselves. We are facilitators and project leaders of innovation, and then we do that with various subject units, agents that are helping us as co-leaders of the projects, because they are the ones that actually should work with the solution afterwards. And then we can reach out to all these different departments or solution partners in our innovation network to try to come up with an idea for actually implementing and finding a solution. Yeah. So just final slide here. What is our focus areas? The climate strategy for 2035, which is being worked on right now, gives us some clear headings towards energy field and the mobility field and resource and waste. This is not something new. It's also what we have been focusing on earlier, but now there's a lot more focus on working with innovation and tech because we have caught all the low-hanging fruits in the prior climate plan. So now there is need for new innovation and new technologies to actually help us climb even higher and actually achieving the new goals that we have here. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Again, made some notes to follow up on afterwards. But then last but not least, Alejandro, I would give the word to you to tell us how the innovation and this collaboration ecosystem works in your context.
Thank you very much. I will share with you my screen. I think you let me know it works. Yeah.
Yeah, you can also put it to the full screen. It's currently in this.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah,
so first of all, thank you very much for having us, for having Getafe this morning here. I'm Alejandro, and I'm head of Healthy Homes and Regeneration Strategies and the public company for the City Council. So first of all, I would like to talk to you a little bit about our city, about Getafe. Our city is a medium-scale city with about 200,000 inhabitants in the southern area of Madrid. And we have two very specific inputs that I think are very important for us in order to develop our strategies for the city. First is that we have a very important aerospace business hub in our city with Airbus headquarters here in Madrid. And the second is that we have the headquarters of Carlos III University also here in our city in Getafe. But also not only the ecosystem is important, but also the geographical issues. And we are very close to the capital of Spain, only 12 kilometers away from Madrid. And we have a very strong system of connection, transportation in the southern area that connects Getafe in almost 20 minutes with the city center of Madrid. So that's, I think, for starting, some important informations. And from that, I would like to tell you about the process that we are developing, focusing on energy poverty and hidden energy poverty, with the inertia of an urban innovative actions project that we developed and we finished last year at the end of 2023, actually, and that let us continue working in order to identify where to add and how to collaborate with different entities, and in this case with the universities and also foundations and associations, to give solutions to the people. So we start with diagnosis, and we did different rehabilitation tables, participatory processes, identification of the priority areas, where we identified 24 areas in our city in order to regenerate not only the urban space, but also the buildings and the different spaces in coordination with all the city council delegations, urbanism, maintenance, but also housing. And we developed some application catalogs and some development actions inside a strategical document, which is the rehabilitation strategy. Getafe Rehabilita is the name in Spanish, and that focus on fighting the energy poverty with three very important scales: home, building, and urban scale, neighborhood scale. And all these different actions are inside that strategy and also inside the urban agenda that is focusing on energy poverty and data mainly. How are we doing this? So we are doing this in those three different scales: urban, building, and home, led by the municipality, but in collaboration with universities, NGOs, and foundations and associations. And I would like to share you a little bit some of those actions, because it is very important. We as municipality, it's important to have the diagnosis and the strategies, but the most important thing is to have the actions on the ground and for the neighborhoods, because otherwise it doesn't make sense for them. The actions that we are developing are focusing on different neighborhoods, but I would like to show you an example. This is a very interesting area in our city, in our town, where we have two very close areas, housing areas, with a difference of incomes that is more than the double. So it is crazy, because we have in less than 400 meters away an absolutely a complete different way and kind of families. We have a working class area, vulnerable in the southern area, and business class, we could say, families in the northern area, and there's only a park in between. And what we are doing as municipalities, trying to develop those actions in order to make work better all this area of our municipality, and make work better also the relationship between the families, because otherwise what we are seeing is that families are getting more and more close between each others. So we want to collaborate to make urban space a better and a friendly place for everyone. In those urban actions, we are developing different actions, as I was showing in the urban space, hard actions like regenerate squares and streets, but also soft actions like this one that we are developing, in this case with the Red Cross, the municipal Red Cross headquarters, and trying to collaborate with youth, with children, with different kind of families and profiles, in order to make the public space open to everyone and more friendly. In the building scale actions, we are developing different actions from the municipality. We are renovating buildings, but also we are collaborating with foundations, in this case with Naturgy Foundations, with this supplier, an energy supplier in Spain. And we developed with them a project in order to put solar panels in the rooftop of some buildings in some of those vulnerable areas that we were talking before. It is working pretty well. It is not easy, even if the investment is for free for the neighborhoods and for the neighbors, but we are trying to do that mix between the foundations, the private investment, and the public collaboration to get solutions and make the neighbors a better situation in their homes, but also in the buildings. And finally, in their homes, we are trying to give some small solutions, soft and hard solutions with energy efficiency kits, with us some fans, radiators, microwaves, fridges, different solutions in order to make their homes more efficient and better conditions for them and to be more comfortable at their homes. And at the same time, what we try to do is to make a sensorization of the homes and work together with a university, in this case with Carlos III University, in order to identify which kind of solutions are working better in order to fight the energy poverty and the hidden energy poverty. So for us, the important point is to have that frame, which is a strategy, and we will see, and I'm finishing now, we'll see the framework that we have, but having these three main scales, urban, building, and home, and trying to work and collaborate with those different actors in each one in order to give solutions to our citizens inside the strategy. And we have this work framework with different lengths of work from the 2020 at the beginning of the Urban Innovative project and until now. Sorry, because all the projects are in Spanish, the name, but this is the explanation that from the European project, we develop this framework, this strategical perspective in order to give solutions from the diagnosis. So those are complex diagnostics, but we have to give integral solutions with very, very specific actions, because otherwise it doesn't work. So in conclusion, what we are trying to do is moving for the immediate, from the now to the structural perspective, to the long-term perspective, collaborating with all kind of entities in our municipality, social, foundations, NGOs, neighbor associations, in order to give solutions. And what we want to do in the next years, actually, is also to start collaborating with the local environment, local ecosystem of business, in order to give those solutions in a local way. So thank you very much, and I hope it was interesting for you.
Thank you. Yeah, of course it was. And I'd really like to brought in this NGO and this sort of neighborhood communities perspective to the discussion as well. So now I would also invite Gülle back on the screen. So first, I have a few clarifying questions on the things that our speakers presented. I think for each of you, actually, I have two questions, but we'll do a circle. And while I'm doing this, I encourage the participants to think if you also have something you would like to clarify from what you just heard. So we will have time for that. And then after that, we will go to a more general discussion on the topic of the webinar, not maybe directly anymore focusing just on the cases we heard. But first, Gülle, I would start with you because you were the first to present. You mentioned that you were doing a scattering of urban challenges from the cities. And then you explained that then the researchers need to propose these projects, and there is this sort of a initial pilot proposal stage, and then you go into this longer sort of pilot plan. which is, and to me, sounds like a filter of maturity of the project ideas and which is feasible and what is not feasible. But what about the challenges? Do you also somehow have a filter on the challenges when cities propose them? Are you expecting a level of detail, or is it could even be just like 2 sentences? We have, I don't know, we have issues with our waste management. So how deep do you go in this challenge collection? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, in reality, we still have, I guess, about 4 questions that the cities need to answer, and it's usually maximum 2 pages. But on top of saying what the challenge is, they a little bit also need to explain, like, okay, what they expect to happen thanks to that, what are kind of the goals, what's the impact they want to see, and also a little bit about what they have already tried. Or what's there and why aren't they using the things already? Probably they have done something, so we get some information about the challenge. The other filtration is, of course, we look by ourselves, like if something is, let's say, not in the scope. Yeah, we have had cases when someone is telling, okay, I need 100 solar panels to the roofs of schools. Then it's very nice, you need to go and buy it. There is nothing really for researchers to crack. So we go through that filter, and the other is that we let the cities to vote for what challenge is proposed by others. So we see which of those challenges is really relevant to as many cities as possible, not just 1 or 2. So it's very niche, and we wouldn't have really market for that. So these are the 2 filters.
Okay, thank you, Gyula. Kristen, I would jump to you and a bit maybe similar field of question, actually. You mentioned that often maybe this the city officials then come with, we need solution A, and then you need to talk to them and say, but maybe actually need solution B or C, and then you identify this through this thorough scoping process. But what is this thorough scoping process actually? Is it then your team of experts who has vast knowledge about solutions on the market and what is done in other parts of Europe, and then you just have a conversation with the city officials? Or so is there like a methodology about this scoping of how do you get from you don't need solution A, you actually need solution B? So how does this process work?
It depends upon where the problem arises. Sometimes we are presented with a subject or a project from external forces that suggests that we should look into a problem with a solution, and then we present that internally and have a discussion about, is this a problem that is actually existing within the city of Copenhagen? And if it is, would such a solution or a project actually solve that, or would it be something else? And it usually takes quite a lot of meetings in person to discuss these things. And it's the same, more or less, procedure if it's an internal idea that arises. An example could be that we have some waste stations in the city where we are trying to reuse the furnitures and house supplies around the city, and we want to have a better understanding of how much is actually being reused. And the idea from the subject unit was that we should use a lot of AI to experiment and do something with it. But when we actually dug into what is the needs of the right now, it became clear that there is a time limit for actually identifying a solution. So they had to have it within more or less of a year or a year and a half. And already there's this understanding that, okay, AI can do some things, but not necessarily everything. And within a year and a half, it becomes very difficult to actually find a solution, even if it exists. So then we can go out, look into the market and see what is existing, but at the same time, we can also challenge them on, okay, what is the necessary requirements for actually making sure that you can collect the necessary data. And it became clear also in that discussion and scoping process that at the beginning, it may be only necessary to do something with a rate and a clarification of what is the subject that is being weighted. And then we can go into a much smaller pilot project that allows us to weigh what a furniture, for example, would weigh in terms of kilograms, and then we can match that with a iPad, for example, that could register what is it that is being weighted, and then you have this small pilot testing of understanding what is it. Is it this type of information that you actually needed, or is it something else? And then we can scale it up with an AI solution in the future. So we are really trying to understand what is the necessary requirements to the problems that arises, and then challenging them on not building an entire car at the beginning, but just trying to make sure that it has 4 wheels and a steering mechanism. And then we can put in the engines and all the fixings afterwards when we are getting an understanding of it actually is able to drive.
And in this scoping process, are you already reaching out to the universities and private sector, or they come in at a later stage? And in the scoping process?
We are reaching out to our innovation network. So other cities, we are reaching out to universities. We are doing a market dialogue and search. Yeah.
Okay, good. Then I jump, Alejandro, to you. Universities in your collaboration framework, are they there mostly sort of, let's say, social scientists working on the communities and the sort of poverty and then sort of the social economic disparities in the region and this type of analysis and, I don't know, facilitation of bringing these communities together? Or do you also collaborate then with these, let's say, engineers, developing the, I don't know, solar energy and so on? So how does the universities come into this, your process?
So we are working together in all those 3 different scales that I was talking about. And depending on the scale, we collaborate with different research groups at the universities. We usually collaborate with the Carlos III University here in Getafe, and they are more focused on data. Actually, they are engineers, they are data analysts, and what they are developing is a tool in order to identify the hidden energy poverty in our town from the data that we already collect in the municipality, because always that someone is coming to the municipality asking for some kind of help, some kind of procedure that they have to do. We try to collect some data, and those data that we are collecting can be analyzed and can be useful in order to clusterize the families, the group of population, and identify in which areas we have more energy poverty, more hidden energy poverty, and where do we have to work to regenerate not only the homes, but the buildings and the urban spaces. So this is the way we collaborate. We also collaborated in the past, not now, but we collaborated with social specialists in order to identify and ask the people, even on the ground, on the streets, to identify their needs. But no, right now we are working together in data mainly.
Okay, and then I will actually still remain with you with the follow-up question, and then go back the reverse order. And the topic now is money, because this is always somehow interests everybody, right? So in your case, Alejandro, you talked about that you had the strategic framework on what you're planning to do across the years, and you mentioned that this Urban Innovation Action Project funding was there. So are you doing these initiatives mostly with different project funding, or is there also like municipal funds allocated to the strategy to implement these actions?
So we are working all together. So it's not only municipal investment, but it's mainly municipal investment, actually. From the Urban Innovative Action Project, we had like almost about 6 million euros in order to develop the project. So it was kind of a big amount of money to develop all the project with different partners. It was few money actually for developing and articulate the actions on the ground, but a lot of research and diagnosis, which was very important for us for the strategical perspective, but not much money for the investment on the buildings and on the urban spaces. And now what we are doing is from that diagnosis, from that strategical perspective, trying to develop the investment on the ground. Because what we realize is that, and especially after COVID-19, people feels very far from the municipality, from the state, for the regional governments, because they feel sometimes that they are alone to face their problems. And we are at the same time forcing people or trying to force communities to make better conditions in their buildings, in their neighborhoods, and in their homes, because the conditions on their homes and the buildings are very bad. But they feel it as something bad. And what we are trying to do is, okay, we are helping you, we are giving the tools, we are giving not all the money, but we are investing money in the public space, so we can ask you better and in an easier way in order to you have to invest in your own building. And maybe we are giving some funds to help with energy efficiency, for instance. But we have a lot of accessibility problems still with lifts. There are a lot of buildings that don't have lifts here. And we are talking from some years ago about energy efficiency, energy poverty, but we don't even have resolved the accessibility problems. So that balance is the difficult point, and the investment is mostly from the municipality now for national and EU funds investment also. And as we collaborate with foundations, they also make the investments in, for instance, the solar panels. They put the money for the community, or the Red Cross, that they are putting also some money for the energy efficiency kits. But university, we work together with the university with other programs and fundings, but it's mainly municipal.
Okay, good, thanks. I jump, Christian, to you as well, with the Copenhagen Solutions Lab sort of being part of the city structure unit of the city. So what is your sort of funding model? Is it just the city's own funds, or is there something else that you're working with?
I think it's important to remember that the city of Copenhagen is a political organization. We are working for the citizens. So it's so important that our politicians that in the end are responsible for the city budget do not waste the citizens' money to just do pilot testing and technology advancement just for the sake of doing it. So if we are to use internal innovation budgets, there is a requirement for a more or less tentative business case to exist that can then be refined through the internal budgets, and then it should go into a final budget that is then implemented afterwards, where we are increasing the services or adjusting the employee scale that the units can work with. And that's also why we are working more or less slow with innovation, because we need to be sure that the business case and the solutions is actually something that is worth investing in for a city perspective. So if we are to do something that is more risky, we usually do it with external budgets from the EU, for example, the Horizon project fundings or the Interact fundings or national fundings for the whole of Denmark, because the restrictions of these business cases are not as foretold. And in that sense, it gives us more leeway to get a sense of what is the pilot testing or the trial that we can then use to get the understanding for creating these business cases that then allows us to find our internal budgets.
Okay. I'm already basically both from you and as well as Alejandro. I heard EU funds are great for diagnostics and sort of prep work before you get to the more actual business cases and you get the private money in there or this municipal owned budget into the process. But Kyllä, Smart City Challenge, what is you mentioned ERDF, so maybe just a few words about how the funding model works for you.
Yeah, at the moment, we are lucky to have the 100% ERDF funding and Estonian state money, so until 28. So we are all lucky in that sense. Of course, it brings along a lot of bureaucracy, but otherwise it's all nice. But yes, we are very intensively working on how to continue. And we have the preliminary agreement with the City of Tallinn to try the new model, where we divide the costs or the investment between 3 partners. So one is kind of the soft money that we have, or we hope in long term to get from the ministries in Estonia. Then 1/3 is the cities or then private real estate developers who quite often also come to our building and ask, can we develop this and that? And then 1/3 is either the technology company whose product we are developing further together with the researchers to take, on the market. Or then in case it's a totally new thing and there will probably be a spin-off, then in that case, this is business angels or investors. We are also working with those early stage investors in deep tech. So trying to divide it between 3 different sponsors or whatever we call them, and also trying still to a little bit diminish the scale. As you heard, we have at the moment these 800,000, 1.2 million, 2-3 years. So try to cope with 1 year, 1.5, and also decrease the budget somewhat so that it's kind of doable for cities as well.
Okay, I mean, and I think it's great that you already have a model envisioned once the ERDF project runs out. So I hope it also works out the way it's foreseen. I would now, before going to the broader discussion on the topic of the webinar, so how to facilitate this innovation and knowledge transfer from universities and businesses to the smart cities, I would now welcome and involve our audience more actively into the exchange. So if anybody in the audience also has a question or comment regarding what the presenters have said so far, then please, raise your virtual hand and turn on your camera, and then you can ask the question. And I see that Merit, so please unmute yourself. You can also turn on your camera to ask your questions.
Yes, hello everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well.
It's okay. Yes, I had some problems earlier with the mic. So yes, I'm Merit Tatar. I'm from Institute of Baltic Studies. And first of all, I really would like to thank you all the presenters for your very nice overviews of how do you work with innovations and with different stakeholders to really help different solutions to emerge in cities. My question is directed to you, Kyllä, about this scheme that you are working here in Estonia. So you mentioned some of the challenges at the end of your presentation or lessons learned from your activity, but my question is related to what have you learned about attracting cities actually to such a scheme? I mean, do you need to put a lot of effort into that for them to really participate and to try to benefit from what you're offering, or do cities see these kind of support schemes like as naturally needed and valued? So maybe some insights from your experience.
Yes, thank you. Yes, in reality, we are quite happy to see that it isn't so difficult, of course, to get cities like really internationally involved. However, of course, we have done networking and yeah, whatever, marketing campaigns and so forth. But still, it's possible to get them board, although there are quite many, let's say, EU projects with different types of pilotings and so forth. This still kind of, yeah, stands out in one other way. There are different ones. It's in many cases, when we talk about startups, then usually those startup innovation things are like, yeah, 20,000, 30,000, 6 months things. So this is quite different in that aspect. And also in many cases, let's say, yeah, this bringing those researchers and really cities together from different countries, and that the end result is a product, not just a pilot project. What we see quite a lot from the cities is that they are kind of frustrated of doing Horizon projects for piloting, and then the pilot is done and everything is forgotten. So that we really work on how to really get it implemented kind of from day one, to get the commitment from the city side that they already from day one think about that, and we have the right people involved. So we totally avoid those cases where we have this whatever smart city unit or strategic unit saying that yes, we want to do it, and we don't have the real people. For example, if this is a transport project, then we need the transport people. If this is a, I don't know, waste issue, then we need this environment unit to be on board. Otherwise, we are not accepting them at all. So to see this commitment and need, and also in the research team, we need this business commitment. Someone who is ready to become a businessman, or then they have a company on board who says they are interested to commercialize the things. So yeah, we are happy to still that the cities are on board, although there are so many different things, and in many cases we understand that they ask to send challenges here and there and here and there. They may be okay, so overloaded with that, but still there seems to be an opportunity.
And are the cities mostly like capitals or large cities, or do you see also smaller cities coming?
We see also smaller cities. Yeah. We see also smaller cities, and in many cases, in reality, we have to admit that it's kind of easier to work with smaller cities. First, they are more hungry, meaning they are not overloaded with all those things. And the other thing is the communication is easier. With big cities, you really have those big strategic units and whatever, and they don't have daily connections with their whatever transport and waste people. But in small city, it's like, yeah, whatever, 30 people, whatever it is. But it's much easier for them to get the right people involved. They know who the person is. So yes.
Thank you, Kyla, and thank you, Merit, for the question.
Thank you.
Any other questions directly to what our presenters have been saying? So once again, you can raise the hand and turn on the camera.
In reality, if some of the cities, I don't know, participating here have some good experiences about, let's say, getting from the pilot to the implementation, that would be also great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, if there is any cases, then we feel to share with Kyla and the rest of us. I come from Estonia, as does Kyla, and here usually you need to wait until it gets awkward because people are shy. Maybe it's the same in Denmark with more Nordic mindset. But of course also not forcing. So if still questions come, you can interact later as well. I would then make the topic a bit broader. And of course, you know, you're coming from the background that you're working on daily and the frameworks you're working. But leaving aside maybe what you do in particular in these programs, in your view, what is sort of the key sort of aspect or prerequisite that needs to be there in order that there could be this innovation transfer from the public sector, from the private sector or from the universities do a city? And why I'm formulating like this is that I think we see a lot of European initiatives, right, in the Green Deal, and then you have all these programs, Smart Cities Marketplace, you have Covenant of Mayors, different 100 Cities Challenge, and so on. So we have a lot of like sort of signals and pressure on cities to do something and set their sort of targets by 2030 to become more greener and sustainable. But then I wonder if at times cities are a bit struggling. What do I do? Like, how do I do it in practice? There is a lot of this pressure. Okay, there's some pilot money, but then how do I do these innovations? You know, I'm just maybe, as Kyle said, a team of 30 public officials in a small city government. So I'm wondering if you have like a thought of what is this prerequisite? Is it having a body like the Copernican Solutions Lab, or is it something else that needs to be there as a starting point in your view? And whoever wants to answer from the speakers, and of course from the audience, is also very welcome to share with the rest of us.
I think the prerequisite is to understand what is it that you're actually trying to do from a city perspective. Are you a smaller city that maybe wants to be a smart city or work within the smart city field, but don't know where to start? Then you just jump in and begin to try to use data, trying to collect data and trying to get an analysis going. You may focus more on traffic because it's an easier subject to get into, and there's a lot of existing technologies within that field. So in that sense, it's easier to do, but also something that everyone can see works well for the citizens. To improve the traffic and congestions is always a highly popular topic for the politicians and the citizens. And then when it becomes more and more difficult to work with, it requires something else. It's not necessarily that you have a Copenhagen Solutions Lab or even a unit that works with Smart City. We have many cities within Denmark that has only 1 or 2 people working with smart city initiatives in the various municipalities, and they are usually focusing on just a single subject, for example, traffic or waste, and then they have easier access, as Kyle said, to the mayors or the strategic departments that they need to work with, but at the same time that narrows the field of scope that they can work with. So, for example, with the larger municipalities, for example, Copenhagen or Aarhus, there is departments that are working more strategic with technologies and smart city development, and that they are allowed to work with a broader field that they and scope that they can then focus on and have people allocated to. So I don't think there is one size fits all. It depends on what is it that you're actually trying to do, and why is it that you are doing it. Is it to begin to become a smart city, to try to even understand what it is, or do you have that understanding and it's now trying to enrich that understanding by improving the functionalities of it?
Okay, so it still comes down to initial vision and clarity of objectives, so basic strategy, and then you mentioned data, and then if you're a smaller city, then likely focusing a single subject at least initially might be the way to go, but then figuring out what is the single subject that is important. I don't know, Alejandro, in your perspective, like what is in your context, what has been the sort of important precondition that you have been able to work with all these stakeholders across these 3 levels of home, houses, and the networks? I mean the neighborhoods. Is it your unit that was important, or was it a key individual that led the process, or was it something else that has been vital?
So I think that the important point is to realize that we were talking about innovation it was actually an urban innovative actions project. So it was mostly about innovation and develop the pilot, focusing on hidden energy porting. But we realized that, and especially as I said, after COVID-19, we couldn't talk only about innovation to the people. We need to talk about the real needs and identify those needs. And after identifying, work together, of course, from the municipality, but with the stakeholders. So it's not only municipality work, it's not a process absolutely top bottom, but it's a mix, because we are trying to give some participatory processes, to give some participatory spaces in order to understand the needs of the people. Because as we are working those 3 different scales, each scale has their own needs, and each scale has different situations and solutions and different stakeholders. And especially when we are talking about housing scale, home scale, the solutions can be very different, and the solutions are not always given by technical perspective, because we are entering in the houses of the people, in the homes. So it is mandatory to understand what they need and how they use their home. And sometimes they are using their home not in a properly way from the technical perspective, but if you get closer to the social needs, to the social situation, to the working situation that they have, then you can reach to a better solution, which is not the most maybe never not the most innovative, neither the best technical solution, but it's a mix between the understanding and the innovation. So the process for us was led by the municipality, but it wasn't absolutely top bottom. We have been working with all those associations, also regional institutions, from the Architects Association, national institutions, in order to identify and give the solution. And then on the ground, listening, especially at home scale and building scale. And also we are developing now the participatory processes at neighborhood scale, in order to give solutions focus on the needs of the people and how they identify what they need on the ground and on the public space. It has also problems, and it is more difficult from the also from the political perspective, because we don't have the solutions the solution A, and we develop that solution to B. So maybe we start with A and we finish with G, and we don't know how we reach that letter, but we reach a solution. And this is also difficult to manage from a political perspective. But we are dealing with that. And I think when we put all these kind of processes inside the strategy, and the strategy is mostly a political perspective, but also a city long-term perspective, I think it works in a good way, mostly.
And I think it nicely complements what Christian was saying. So if Christian was saying, what do you want to do? Then what I'm hearing from you is like, what are the communities telling you? What are the real needs as well, in a way, right? Do not forget that layer. And I think also this, what you were saying in a way reminds us that innovation, not in all contexts, innovation needs to be very high tech or very, very big. It can be also something simpler. And this is not necessarily connected to smart cities, but I like this example of the innovation processes and talks around silver economy, and how do we make it more convenient to become older in Europe with aging societies and so on. And then you have these different also living labs and test beds and solution providers coming up with new solutions for the elderly. And then you've heard of these different clever sensors of if an elderly person falls, the sensor starts beeping, all of these things. But then what has actually maybe gotten most interest and traction in some contexts from the elderly are just simple low-tech kitchen utensils that are easier to grasp or easier to use because, I don't know, hand is shaking or you don't have the strength that you used to have. And it doesn't need to be very digital, right? So it just reminds us that innovation and making life better for our citizens can sometimes come also from other backgrounds. But then, Gyula, I would also like to ask you, because you work a lot with sort of all sides. You work with the cities, you work with the scientists, and in the end, you actually want this solution of this technology provider to get to a new level, or there would be something new commercializable. So in your view, what is sort of the biggest precondition that needs to be there in order for these three stakeholders to somehow collaborate towards the same goal?
First, when starting with cities, then I would say there are kind of two sides. One is from the people or persons, that they need to be, let's say, curious, open-minded, and ready to try something new. And that's not very often happening in cities. And the other is from top down. This is this acceptance of risk and failure, because whenever we try something new, not always succeeds. Otherwise, it's not new. So if these two things are there, then something can happen in a city. And then from the researcher side, it's kind of the same in the sense that the curiosity, readiness to listen to the cities, not just sell their solution. We know how to solve it. And in some cases, it's very tricky. Yeah, we are smart researchers. We know everything. Like they need to listen and understand the real needs and the real conditions inside the cities. And in many cases, the cities don't need so complicated, so high tech, so whatever. They need, in many cases, quite easy things. And sometimes it's not so easy for researchers to accept. Also, the precision level. They want to research more, talk to more, and so forth, to have the absolute truth. But the cities say we don't need the absolute truth. We just need some level to make some kind of decisions and so forth. So sometimes there is this barrier on how to really get this balance between them. So it's really open dialogue, and in most cases you need to get the people into the same room quite sometimes before. We like these online things, it saves us time and so forth, but in reality people open up when they are still in the same room. So we need to do that as well.
And Christian, do you see something similar? Because once you get to the stage of, okay, you've identified the potential solution to go with, and then you start talking to the providers, who could bring the solution. Maybe it's a startup or a business or a university. Do you see there some sort of potential barriers where the thing sort of collapses because there is something is missing, or again, different expectations, maybe, as Gyula was saying about the researchers want to go take their time and get to the ultimate truth. So are you also seeing something similar happening either on the
Yeah, I do, and I completely agree with Gyula that when we have identified a problem, there is a clear need for us in Copenhagen City Solution Labs to understand what are the different actors' responsibilities. The private sector and the market is trying to create a solution that they can sell to the city as fast as possible because they need to do business with it. From the research side, there is a tendency to have a slow pace because they're trying to find that absolute truth and are not necessarily even eager to identify that. So there is a great difficult struggle there between trying to sell something tomorrow and trying to identify a complete truth in 10, 20, 30 years' time. And that creates a difficult scoping process for us as a city to understand when to use the knowledge and the advantages of the different actors in that field to try to understand what is the final solution that the city should actually go with and focus on and purchase. So an example of that is air pollution. We have worked with that extensively over the last almost 7-8 years. So in the beginning, we were just trying to get new information about what air pollution could be within the city. So we worked with a small startup company that had a local sensor that they could place, and then gives us some insights to measuring air quality with other possibilities than those regulatory EU stations that are placed within the city. And then we got some new information. We learned something from that there are other possibilities to do it. And then we did a large-scale testing and trial with Google and various knowledge institutions to get that business side of it, but at the same time also have the knowledge institutions' truth to what the final answer actually is. Because it's important that our politicians, when they are explaining the citizens what the problem is, that there is a truth to what they're saying, because otherwise we are faulty as a city and as politicians for our citizens. So we can not just rely on what Google said. We had to have these knowledge institutions be adherent to what is the actual truth here. But in that process, we can also see that the institutions were not very keen to provide final answers, because they could always investigate even further. And there was need to do more research and have better understanding and do more measurements. And if we were just to follow that, we would never be able to find that answer to what is the problems that we should actually fix. So we could then use our expertise as facilitators of these two entities to come up with a solution where we could say after some years that now there's a cutoff point where we need to force the knowledge institutions to say something that they should actually be able to say, this is somewhat of a truth that we can adhere to and everyone can agree to, while at the same time the Google and their business model for that knowledge would have to be waiting for the knowledge institutions to actually provide that answer. So there's a difficulty in that field. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, overall, in general, Christian, I think listening to you today, what I'm taking away as well, it's always a process, and maybe a process that's a bit longer than you might want or expect initially when
Yes.
you jump into. So I think, and this is also, I think, maybe from another perspective side, you just as I guess cities and public officials to also be well, like kind to themselves in a way, to know that you cannot probably have change by tomorrow, right? You need to sort of start doing something slowly and then see where you get from now in the 5 years. We are getting to the closing stages of the webinar, but before I say a few words about the Smart Cities Marketplace, I would still one more time like to turn towards the audience, whether there is somebody that still has a final comment or a question to ask as well. Because I know that there are different project managers, city officials, also from universities in the audience. So if somebody still has something to contribute, now is the last moment. If not, then I will share my screen to tell you a bit about what we do in the Smart Cities Marketplace and how this sort of feeds into the discussion as well. Just need to move this here. Okay, so the Smart Cities Marketplace, as said, is one of the European Commission's initiatives to support the smart city transition across European cities. And basically, it is a platform or a hub of different solutions and projects around smart cities. We also have a repository on the website. It is also a forum of knowledge exchange. So we organize different peer learning events, but also very topical, very narrowly focused and discussion groups that everybody can join to contribute to help find common solutions. And then we have a set of services, which we call the matchmaking services. And I will tell you a bit more about that shortly. But basically, it has been called to action as a resource for cities and for city-led consortia as well as for investors. And one of the tasks is informing, so raising the awareness and know-how of local, like small cities and also larger cities, but the main focus is on smaller cities on the marketplace. So how can they really take the steps to become more climate neutral and sustainable? As we talked earlier, it can be sometimes a very big thing, but then how do you break it down into actionable steps, right? So the marketplace is there to help the cities out with this. It does this through the support services and thus accelerating the development of cities. The platform does have thematical focus areas around clean energy, mobility, and then ICT solutions for the benefit of climate neutrality. And the main approach is around these 3 building blocks. So the platform offers free of charge tailored support and guidance to these cities or city-led consortia. So it helps make projects more mature. So it goes back to this diagnostics and prep work side that we talked about today. So you can access legal, technical, and financial assistance from the platform. We also help access to funding and financing opportunities to match the cities with potential investor communities. And then different activities around networking with peers. More concretely, there's sort of 6 type of services. So there are different type of events we do, matchmaking events, which are physical. We also have very focused financial masterclasses where city managers, officials can come and sort of figure out how to really make their project bankable and what type of financial considerations they should plan into it, because this financial planning of these smart city projects is often also quite complex, and especially for smaller cities can be quite hard thing to tackle. So the masterclasses are there for that. And then of course we do thematic webinars like the one today. But then we have the meetings with investors and the technical consultancy that I already mentioned. Here's just a list of these investors involved in our network. And maybe to give you one example of this technical assistance. So in Poland, they have a national strategy around hydrogen and clear targets for 2030 on what they want to reach in this space. And the city of Bydgoszcz has already been taking local steps and initiatives to adhere to the national policy around hydrogen. And what they have wanted to do is they want to produce solar energy from rooftop PV farms on their government buildings. And then they actually want to do hydrogen hydrolysis to generate green hydrogen that they could then feed into the public buses, hydrogen buses. But in order to figure out how to go best about it, they have already done some prep work. So it's part of their own city sustainable energy and climate action plan. They have made use of the European city facility support to do a sort of assessment or a feasibility analysis. And then they turn to the Smart Cities Marketplace to get further technical assistance into shaping the project up into a more concretable, bankable project vision. And then, of course, the next step would be to start getting investors involved and other funding sources. And this is still a process that's ongoing with them. But basically, technical assistance helped to sort of clarify the focus and also, again, tackle some of the assumptions that the city had regarding this vision of the project. So who can apply and how? Basically, cities and city-led consortia are the main target group. But also businesses, researchers are also welcome, but you really then need to get the buy-in from relevant city administration as administrators to sort of come with you. And the process, the easiest way is to send us an email at this matchmaking@smartcitiesmarketplace.eu, and then we start guiding you through the process. But basically, there is a small, as Gyula said, a two-pager or something like this that the cities need to fill in about describing their project and their needs and their also financing needs, because the program is also there to connect with the investors. So later, when you get the slides, you can also check the links for more information. But the main thing is to reach out to us proactively if this is something that is of interest to your city. Last but not least, to say just that the Smart Cities Marketplace is not acting in vacuum. There are other initiatives around Europe. We try to collaborate with them. And now a call to action is for those cities that have signed the Covenant of Mayors they're signatories of the EU Covenant of Mayors, because for them, we are now offering, in collaboration, 20 days of free expert guidance, either on legal aspects or energy saving calculations, investment concepts, or other type of needs that the cities might have. And there's a deadline by the 23rd of May. And if you want to know more about this, then there are links you can read, but also there's an info day on the 17th of March, which we are doing together with the Covenant of Mayors to walk everybody through the process of what this is and how it looks like. And then, of course, you can see us in some events coming up up until June, focusing on these topics as well. So whether it's the Cities Mission Conference or the EUSF Policy Conference. And with this, I'm basically, getting to the end statements so that you can follow us on different social media channels. A great big thank you to our speakers, to Külle, Christian, and Alejandro for contributing your time, sharing about your models of working in this space, and thank you for your active exchange of your lessons learned and your thoughts on it. And thank you for the participants for staying with us until the end. With this, I close and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.